Nobody had to fabricate anything. That's the part people miss. The most effective misrepresentation doesn't come from lies. It comes from editing. What gets highlighted, what gets minimized, and what quietly disappears. This isn't a story about censorship. It's a story about framing power, how secular media shaped the public's understanding of Christian metal without ever crossing the line into provable falsehood. Just because they played.
The gospel, louder than hell.
And once you see the pattern, you can't unsee it. Let's start where the confusion begins. In the 1980s, heavy metal was already a cultural suspect. Politicians blamed it for violence, television blamed it for corruption, religious leaders blamed it for moral collapse. This period is now historically recognized as the Satanic Panic, a documented moral hysteria amplified by media sensationalism. Inside that climate, something deeply inconvenient appeared, a metal band that openly identified as Christian. Enter Stryper. They didn't hide their faith, they didn't soften their sound, they sold millions of records. They toured arenas, they quoted scripture on stage. From a journalistic standpoint, this should have triggered serious engagement. It didn't. Instead, mainstream coverage leaned on language like novelty, ironic, contradictory, and image-driven. Same era, same gear, same theatrics as secular peers, different interpretation. When secular bands used occult or anti-religious imagery, critics called it symbolism or rebellion. When Stryper used biblical language, critics called it marketing. That distinction is not accidental, it's editorial framing. And because nothing factually incorrect was written, the narrative solidified without resistance. Then came the early 1990s, and the framing intensified. When Stryper released Against the Law and reduced overt religious language, several major outlets framed the shift as abandonment, not evolution. The storyline became irresistible. Christian band rebels against its own faith. Rolling Stone coverage emphasized alcohol, frustration with Christian audiences, and lifestyle changes, while minimizing the band's own clarifications and later denials that they had renounced their beliefs. Stryper publicly disputed aspects of that portrayal, but the correction never traveled as far as the headline. Because Fallen Believer is a better story than complex human transition. Now pause here. Because this isn't about Stryper alone, this is about a method. And that method didn't disappear, it evolved. By the late 1990s and early 2000s, Christian metal diversified into extreme subgenres: death metal, blackened metal, technical metal. Which brings us to the most revealing case in this entire story. Not scandal, not outrage, silence. Enter Extol. Extol emerged from Norway, a country whose black metal scene is famously hostile to Christianity. They didn't soften their sound, they competed on purely technical terms, and won. Secular metal outlets praised Extol's innovation, complexity, and precision. Reviews were glowing, but something was missing. In multiple high-profile reviews and features, Extol's Christian faith was simply not mentioned. Not criticized, not mocked, erased. This wasn't ignorance. Extol never hid their beliefs. Their lyrics, interviews, and press materials made it explicit. Journalists had access to that information. The omission was editorial. Christian belief was allowed in metal only under one condition: that it remain invisible. The audience ends up assuming something false, that faith played no role in the band's identity or message. Now on to the next case. By the 2010s, Christian metal had become more visible, more professional, and more integrated into mainstream touring circuits. Enter Demon Hunter. In 2013, a former Navy SEAL gave a high-profile interview discussing music used during military operations. He claimed that while Metallica had asked not to be associated with interrogations, another band, Demon Hunter, had been supportive. That claim spread instantly. Media outlets ran headlines implying Demon Hunter had volunteered their music for interrogations or torture. The association was explosive. There was only one problem. Demon Hunter denied it, immediately, publicly. They stated they had no knowledge of their music being used in interrogations and had never authorized such use. What they had done, like many bands, was send music and merchandise to troops as general support. That clarification mattered, but it didn't go viral. The accusation traveled farther than the correction. Because Christian band linked to torture is a better headline than band disputes anecdote. Initial claims get amplification, corrections get footnotes. And once the association is planted, it lingers, even after it's disproven. Now zoom out. Across decades, secular media tends to treat Christian metal in one of four ways: mock it, neutralize it, erase it, or sensationalize it. No one demands praise, only accuracy. Metal media has always been ideological, just not honest about which ideology it privileges. Anti-Christian sentiment has long been normalized as rebellion, irony, or critique. Christian conviction is framed as agenda, gimmick, or contradiction. When people say, Christian metal never really mattered, they're often repeating a conclusion they were trained to reach, not one they independently evaluated. But God is great. We know who'll win at the end. We do our research. All info in this video, and the previous ones, are fact-checked. Please, subscribe. Check the links in the description for curated music, books, and gear. If you liked this video, please consider buying our editor a cup of coffee. He got really worked up with the theme this time.